Hi, I'm Ishari, and welcome to my classroom. In this video, I will be discussing 3 philosophical frameworks that set the stage for ethical conversations. The 3 viewpoints I will be discussing are objectivism, relativism, and skepticism. It's ethics, brah. Objectivism refers to the relationship between the objective and the subjective. An objective truth is a truth that exists outside of us and is independent of us. These are things that are facts, regardless of whether you believe them or not. They're called objective because they exist as objects, separate from people. Now, a subjective truth is a truth that is held by the individual. Subjective truths are the things I believe to be true, and they depend on my perception. Let's consider a popular myth we were all told as kids, that Santa Claus exists. And let's pretend that Bowie believes Santa Claus does exist, and that Goliath believes Santa Claus does not. Here we go. I'm Santa Claus. Since I'm Santa Claus and I clearly exist, Bowie's subjective opinion, subjective truth that Santa Claus exists is objectively correct, because I am the object of Bowie's belief. However, Goliath's subjective belief that Santa Claus does not exist is false, because since I exist, objectively speaking, Goliath's subjective truth of Santa Claus's inexistence is objectively incorrect. The concepts of objective and subjective truth also apply to objective and subjective morality. Let's draw it up. Here is the world. Here are 3 human beings. Each of their beliefs is subjective. Same with their morals. Each of their morals is subjective. Now, objectivists believe that objective truth and objective morals exist independently of the subjects. They exist somewhere over here. Now, each one of these individuals has an opinion or a subjective perspective of what is true. Objectivists believe that objective truth exists. So I'm going to draw objective truth, but I'm going to cover it with my hand. Each one of these subjective individuals is going to try to make sure that their subjective views match the objective reality. Now I'll reveal objective truth. It is number 2. Because objective truth 2 is correct, it automatically implies that subjective truth number 2 is also correct. That also automatically implies that subjective truths number 1 and number 3 are both incorrect, objectively speaking. And we can do this with the belief in God. Let's suppose that subjective truth number 1 is monotheism, or the belief in a single God. Subjective truth number 2 is polytheism, or the belief in multiple gods. And subjective truth number 3 is atheism, or the belief that God does not exist. Turns out that objectively speaking, polytheism is correct. That means that monotheism's belief in a single God is incorrect, and that atheism's belief in no God is also incorrect. Now let's bring this scheme back to morality. Let's pretend that instead of this being a question about the existence of God, that it is a question about whether honesty is important or good. In this scenario, subjective truth number 1 is going to say that it is permissible to lie at any time. Subjective truth number 2 is going to say that one must tell the truth all the time. And subjective truth number 3 is going to say that one must only tell the truth when it is convenient for you. It can't be true at the same time that honesty is never important, that honesty is always important, and that honesty is sometimes important. Since the objective moral is 2, lying is wrong, but also telling the truth when it's convenient is wrong. We could then objectively say that telling the truth is morally correct. And we can also say that individual number 2 made the morally correct choice. The quest of the moral objectivist is to try to line up one's subjective morals to what is objectively morally correct. I want to make sure that what I think is moral is actually really objectively moral, because then I will have made a morally correct choice. If what I think is moral is actually objectively not moral, then I have made an immoral decision, objectively speaking. Even though I thought it was the right choice, objectively speaking, it was the wrong choice. Now, because we are human, everything we know and believe to be true is technically subjective, because it is bound by our perception. Even truths that we consider to be scientific facts have a degree of subjective opinion in there, because science relies on the human capacity to observe the physical world. So it automatically is bound by the limits of our perception. When I used my hand to cover number 2, I was actually painting a more accurate picture of what our moral quests are like, because we don't know what is objectively moral. We are bound by our perception. So we are here making judgment calls, making moral decisions, without really knowing ultimately whether we made the right choice or not. Many religious traditions believe they have been revealed objective reality. For example, the Catholic tradition believes that God is the origin and source of all objective reality and morality. And because God loves us, God revealed God's self in the person of Christ. God became a human being and shared in our subjectivity, but also shared some of God's objectivity with us. For that reason, Catholics say that when you get to know Jesus, you get to know truth and you get to know love. You get to know objective truth and objective morality. Of course, different religious traditions all claim that they have a glimpse into objective truth. And some of these traditions preach truths that are contradictory. So they can't both be true at the same time, objectively speaking. And that is where faith comes in. Faith presupposes that as humans, we will never fully understand and grasp objective reality. Faith is fundamentally a trusting leap or a jump onto something that we don't truly understand and will never truly understand as long as we're human, but still choose to believe. Now, moral objectivists are often criticized. Some critics of objectivism believe that the effort to line up our subjective morals to the objective morals is misguided, because we'll never know what is subjectively moral in the first place, so why even try? Two big critiques of objectivism are relativism and skepticism. Moral relativism believes that objective morality does not exist. Therefore, instead of trying to line up our subjective morals to some objective principle, what we need to do is stand steadfast to what we believe is correct. So everyone's subjective morals becomes the guideline that we need to follow. A moral relativist would probably say, you need to do what you feel is right. Or they might say, you need to do what you believe to be right. Of course, the problem with moral relativism is that the absence of an objective moral standard renders these people incapable of having dialogue and common ground when they have differing morals. If everyone is doing what they feel is right, and there is no common language or a common set of principles that they can use to compare each other and to engage in dialogue so they can all improve together, then everyone becomes their own island. And that might be problematic because one of these people might come up with a subjective set of morals that is really problematic. A historical example of that would be Hitler during the Holocaust. Hitler believed that it was morally okay, as a matter of fact, a moral imperative, to rid the world of Jewish people. In that case, moral relativism does not provide people the tools to say to Hitler, you were wrong, because there are no objective morals that I can employ to pass that assessment. Hitler was doing what he felt was right, even though it was incredibly problematic. The final objection against moral objectivism and moral relativism is called moral skepticism. Moral skeptics believe that the concept of morality is a pure human construct and doesn't exist. Moral skeptics will be very weary about any language about right and wrong and believe that those terms are arbitrary and that we're really ultimately just animals instinctually driven to do things here and there. Of course, if moral skeptics are right, then that means that the quest to try to understand right and wrong is futile, and I'm pretty much just wasting my time. The concepts of objectivism and subjectivism are hard to understand at first, but once you get them, ethics really makes sense. When two people have conflicting ethical views, what they really have is a conflict of subjective truths. And when people argue during a Thanksgiving meal about an ethical question, what they are doing is they are claiming that their subjective truth is subjectively correct. And once we understand these two concepts, we are able to approach ethical conversations with an attitude of humility and curiosity. And we're able to work together to figure out which of our subjective truths actually matches the objective one. Thanks for watching my second episode of Ethics, Brah. My third episode is going to discuss the relationship between ethics and happiness. For more videos like these, make sure to subscribe to my page. Stay tuned.